Well, okay. Welcome,
Okay.
everybody. I don't know which camera to look at. Welcome, everybody, to the Idle
That
Zone
one.
Syndicate. And it is Monday
It's
2.0.
yeah.
Few minutes late this evening, and that's my deal. Headphones quit, microphone quit, laptop speakers won't work. Don't know what's up. So on my phone and on a laptop at the same time, you get two versions of me, and they're both crotchety. Now, John's got a very inspirational shirt this evening. I felt like I wore an inspirational one also.
Yeah,
People eating tasty animals.
Yeah.
Before we get started this evening, I need to circle back to last week. And towards the end of our brief little show, when we were in hour 3, I think, quite by accident, Kiki, as he will be known forevermore, Kiki spilled the beans on a nomination for the KBM board and did not know, not his fault at all. He didn't know that was not an open records thing at the moment. And so that took place, and it's no big deal at all. Just wanted to share that that was quite by accident, not on purpose. Doesn't matter because I declined the nomination anyway. So, onward and upward. We had Memorial weekend. We also had Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
And you guys did fun things. I know Kyle did, because I saw a Jeep that was totally dismantled down to the frame. So he was in his element.
Beat up, buddy.
John, what was up around the old homestead there?
We didn't really do a whole lot. I mean, Bree came, we had Riggins all last week, my buddy Riggins. And Bree came home from Houston late Friday night, and then she stayed the weekend, so that was cool. And we had 2 or 3 guests, had a couple angling teams pre-fishing for the Nichols Championship, I think it is next weekend or this weekend, and a couple other guests, and we cooked some hot dogs and sausages over the fire pit and did some s'mores, and that's about it for us. Kind of took it easy. Didn't really do much.
Sometimes that's the best.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nice. What'd you do? You went hunting.
Oh, yeah. Sunday morning, went out with the boys. And when I say boys, I mean Connor's one of the older ones. So they're boys. Kids. All between about 25 and 35. So went out with the boys and chased the birds around, watched Hook, my grand dog Hook. He is a master. Hook is a Dudley Lab. If anybody knows what a Dudley Lab is, it's a strain that is specifically bred for waterfowl.
Okay.
I mean, Connor actually got Hook when he was more into duck and goose hunting, and so Hook's a big lab. He's about 120, but he is just as nimble as
120. He's bigger than Riggins if he's 120.
Yeah. You know, he points. He
Nice.
honors points. It was just a lot of fun to watch him because he is just as stubborn as Connor was, however I want to put that safely. But watching him when it's game time, that was a blast, man. You sit there and we're all 10 yards apart, 20 yards apart. Somebody click a safety off. He's like, and then he's in the sky. It got to the point where on Sunday evening, in the evening hunt, when he was retrieving everything that we were actually hitting, he was retrieving to the person that shot it.
Nice.
So that was, I just, for no formal training, that was just, that was amazing to me. A lot of fun. I had a good time with the guys.
Nothing better when you're bird hunting than watching a good dog. If it's a good dog.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Kyle got his Facebook hacked today. Again.
It's been a Monday on a Tuesday.
Oh man. This is like Super Monday or something. Is there a super moon?
I don't know, but I'm not going to stay awake to find out.
Well, it's not. And here we are. Moody's on. Dennis is on. Hello, Jack. Hey, Dennis. Man, I'm glad you made her out of the hospital, and I hope they got things straightened out for you.
Yeah.
That's a rough deal. I've been through that myself. Travis Birch in the house. I feel like one of those TV anchors that doesn't know which camera to watch.
That one.
Maybe I'll just turn this way. Uh-huh. Good times.
What'd you do, Kyle?
Oh, just, spent a little time at the lake. Went up to Farlington for a day. Got the kids out on the pontoon a little bit. Did a little kind of beach the pontoon and fan cast around and try and catch something. Just drifted around the pontoon for a few hours, and then I guess to rewind on Saturday, I decided to pull a kind of a new old project in the shop and kind of get started on it. I've been staring at it now for a little over a year and a half since it's been at my house, and it's a long backstory that I won't bore you guys with, but it's my dad's Jeep. I used to ride around when I was a kid, and it's sat for over 20 years. So
That's cool.
Time to get started on restoration on it, which will be, probably a 2 or 3 year project, but it's going to be a frame off, and it's going to be a good time. So looking forward to that. Did go to the lake yesterday. Went over to Big Hill for a few hours. Like I was kind of talking to you before we got started here, it's September. Water temperature's kind of starting to creep down just a little bit.
Be right back.
We got 80-degree water temperature. I think it was 79 when I put the boat in the water, and it was like 62 when I got in my truck and left my house in the morning. So I mean, it kind of feels like fall a little bit.
Yep.
And the fishing kind of is reflecting fall-ish a little. I think the water temperature still needs to drop a little bit for it to get better, obviously. But, man, it's fall fishing 101, if you're a junk fisherman, now's the time for sure. I mean, because you could have anything from a football jig that you'd want to drag 20 foot deep to a 1-. or top water. So junk fishing 101.
Yeah.
I like it that way. I enjoy doing that. I like to put the trolling motor down and just get to moving and find them. And I think that, especially at Big Hill right now, the fish are kind of scattered. But I got to say, I don't know if you guys saw the results or not from a tournament over at Stockton on this past weekend, but there was a Summer Bass Brawl tournament, and 26 and a half pounds got first place.
Yeah, I heard that.
7-pounder got caught. There was another one almost identical to it that was just, I mean, they had a bag. Almost 27 pounds, I believe. And then, I don't have Facebook in front of me, so I don't have all the stats, but I think 14 pounds was second.
Yeah.
Which would be more normal.
Yeah. A 14-pound bag on Stockton here recently has been pretty. I mean, it's been the top two. So, just shout out to those guys. I'm pretty sure the one of them is actually a guide on the lake. But wowee, I mean, a couple of bruisers in that bag. So
good night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to Moody today, and he was telling me about that.
It's pretty awesome.
So looking at the comments, I didn't mean to cut you off if I did.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I need 2 sets of eyes too. So Travis lives on Lake Dabanawa, which is kind of north of Lawrence, and their homeowners association, I think that's what it is. They do a kids derby for kids in the neighborhood, and Travis brings the big show out and sets it up and does weigh-ins for the kids. And they have prizes and stuff. And they had 52 kids at the neighborhood derby, and every fish counts. One kid had 32 pounds.
How many fish was that, Travis? And what was the big one? What was the biggest?
Either he lives on a lake full of hogs or they caught a ton of them.
Well, and everything counts. So it's
I think we
catfish.
caught a ton of them.
There's a lot of bass in that lake. I'm going to tell you what. See if he comes back on and tells us. Oh, the catfish was 10, 15?
No, 10 to 15 fish, he said.
Oh.
So two pounders, maybe some couple 3-pounders in there, I guess.
32 pounds of bass, 4 pounds of channel cat in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Good night.
2 pounders. I mean, 30. That's a lot of 2-pounders for a kid. That's pretty cool. 3-pounders. That'd be fun. I'd like to do that. That'd be awesome.
They're
not doing that here at Grand right now. I can tell you that much.
The one time I got to fish Lake Dabanawa with Travis, we fished maybe an hour, and then we lost battery, and then we lost starter battery. So one of the neighbors had to come out and tow us back to the ramp. So
kind of sounds like how my day started.
Oh man, days like this just snowball. Oh.
So if you guys, the guys that have been on social media, I'm assuming probably saw the one of the bigger tournament.
Yeah. Before we get into that, before we go down that rabbit hole, I want to do back up from last week because we talked about the other stuff that was going on before this announcement and the code of conduct and stuff like that. And I want to back up because, I said that Bass is probably going to fine so-and-so and blah, blah, blah. And I really did something that I don't like to do, like interject what I think is going to happen before I know the story, the whole story. And I still don't know the whole story, but I did make it a point to go back and watch Saturday and Sunday on the FS1 live show. I recorded them, so I went back and watched. And honestly, if I'm Bass, Chris, Lisa, looking at the code of conduct, I don't think either one of them broke code of conduct on the water. It was, you can argue all day about the ethics of going to the leader's spot, but as far as the code of conduct goes, and I don't know if you guys watched the show, but Robert G. and Chris Johnston had a very civil conversation on the water, and Chris was explaining to him why he was there and why he felt like he had the right to be there. And Robert was very understanding about his opinion. There was no back and forth, and they pretty much fished together, without issue. I mean, yeah, Robert, I heard him on the Mercer show. Would he have rather had this? He said this, would I have rather had the spot there to myself? Absolutely. Who wouldn't? But I didn't. Chris Johnston wasn't the only person he was sharing it with. Trey McKinney. There was other people that were out of the camera shot that he was telling us about, so that part of it, I don't think there was anything other than, in my opinion, Chris Johnston went doing that, gave up the right to ever complain. Like if they're at Grand and he's leading and he's on a spot and Jason Christie comes up and wants to join him, he gave up that right to get mad at Jason Christie for that. That's my opinion.
I completely agree with that.
But as far as being civil and not being, just dogging each other and starting a war, and all people were on social media saying Robert G. was going over to people and trying to get them to come in there. Specifically, they said he went over to Trey McKinney to get him to try to come up closer and catch some of those fish. And that was incorrect. It wasn't Trey McKinney. It was John Garrett, who Robert G. and John are roommates. They room together on the road, so they share just about everything they do, spots and all that stuff. So that part of it, I don't think there was anything wrong other than I don't think I'd have done it. I'd like to think I wouldn't have done it. And if I had to guess, I would say down deep, Chris Johnston probably wishes there was a better way for him to, do what he did. I would like to think he understands why people will say that was wrong. And I think he probably does. And then the other part, the Corey Johnston part, where he said they were going to make a meat sandwich out of him or whatever, and everybody took that clip and blew it way out of proportion. I've watched the Mercer show, the one after that, and just as I suspected, that's one little 10-second clip out of a 18-minute interview that he had with Corey. And it doesn't show the joking before that and the joking after that. It just took that clip and, like media does, social media does, made it a lot worse than it is. So as far as him being fined for that, like I kind of jumped the gun, probably not. After I watched everything, watched Mercer, he kind of cleared the air. And I know better because I've been on the other side. Those of us that aren't there, aren't at the tournament, aren't backstage, aren't listening to the guys talk. All these people on podcasts that think they know what they're talking about, they don't. I mean, flat out, they don't. They weren't there, and they're just taking clips and making clickbait. So I wanted to clear that up because I don't want to be part of that. I would rather this show, stay positive. Yes, there's going to be times when somebody really does something that we need to talk about, and we need to talk about why the punishment was this and that and whatever. But I don't want to get into speculating.
Well, and it's super easy when the trend on social media sometimes is to focus just on the negative too, right? I mean, the first thing that I wanted to say about it was Dave Mercer was doing his job that morning. He's trying to draw attention to the anglers and get them some social media time, and he's done that at numerous events for numerous years now. And I mean, when all the guys were making fun of how short Tommy Biffle's shorts were that tournament a couple, 2 or 3 years ago, whenever that was, that could have got taken and blown out of proportion too. So I'm with you, John. I like to give guys the benefit of the doubt.
I mean, I've met, Devin says he wanted to handle it in a parking lot. He may have said that, but I've met these guys, and stuff like that is said all the time. And unless you're there, you don't know whether he's joking or not.
In my opinion, it should have been handled in the parking lot before they went fishing.
Yeah.
Because what's handling it in the parking lots, is that a fist fight or is that a conversation?
Right.
Maybe they had that conversation before they ever launched their boat, and then they wouldn't have had to worry about a problem on the water.
Right. Which makes me even more evidence that what Corey said was in a tongue-in-cheek joking was he didn't do it. He didn't go make a sandwich out of him and start on that spot. He ran out in the damn 8-foot waves and puked over the side rather than go where he knew he could catch some fish right on the other side of Robert G. And they could have made a sandwich out of him and did it, but he didn't. So.
Well, he knew what he needed to do to be professional, and so
that's
Rubbin's
and there's some gamesmanship too. He could have said that just to hope that it got back to Robert and got in his head, which it may very well have.
Sure.
I mean, these are the athletes at the top of our sport. They're going to chirp. They're going to talk smack. It happens a lot more than all of us know out here on this side, but most of the time it's all in good, it's sports. And these are the same guys that are chirping at each other, but if Robert G was broke down in the middle of the lake, Corey would run over and get him. no doubt, he's not going to leave him Bob and stranded there. So I just wanted to, I don't want to be part of I'm sure I still will. I'm sure I'm probably going to do it probably on this show sometime tonight. But I don't want to be part of the negativity or feeding the negativity because honestly, I've had a seat that most people don't have. And I need to let y'all know what actually happens behind the scenes that most people don't know. So anyway, that's that. I think it was blown way out of more proportion than, and still is, than actually happened on site. Especially after hearing Mercer and texting him a couple times and,
But we all talked about it, didn't we?
We did. We talked about it.
And so did all the viewers.
Yep.
And so did all the chat rooms and all the message boards and
but also that little thing he does in the morning, that's not a Bass thing.
No,
that's a Mercer thing. Like he does that Mercer in the morning before the launch, and it's not a Bass. Like they probably cringe when he does it, to be quite honest with you, half the time, because they don't know what the anglers are going to say. So anyway, now you can go on to what the big news.
Nope. We're not. You don't, Kiki, you don't get the rabbit hole yet. Almost. We're going to do the positive side of NPFL.
Yeah.
Past event before we go down the rabbit hole.
The other positive side of NPFL. Go ahead.
So one of our guys, Brock Bila, headed out on final day with a camera guy in the boat. He was in 5th place. Stumbled a little bit. It got a little tougher on him on day 3, and he ended up 9th. Still a top 10 finish. Good payday. Brock would be a good guest one of these days. We get to catch him down the road. And I'm going to go ahead and tease it a little bit. Barring any kind of, man, I'm scared to say natural disaster because good night. But barring unforeseen circumstances, Brock will be our speaker at the KBN banquet November 23rd.
Nice.
Yeah. So
that's cool. That's cool.
But then what was announced yesterday, Kyle?
Hold on. Before we get into that, let's talk about some other positive stuff. I mean, we talked a little bit about it, about Rick Clunn. But if y'all have not watched the latest Mercer, he had Rick Clunn on.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In the first podcast after he fished his last elite tournament. He doesn't like to say retired because he's not. He's going to fish some opens, maybe all the opens. But very, very good podcast with Rick Clunn. Last week. I think it was last week.
He's not concluded.
Right.
He's not concluded.
I mean, there was some stuff that he said on there that I just was like, that statement, it was deep and true, and you need to listen to it. I think everybody needs to listen to that podcast. I think because it's and Rick Clunn and Mercer said on the podcast what he loves about Rick Clunn is that he can ask a question and you truly never know like when you ask a question of somebody, there's a lot of times when you think when you know the answer or you know the direction it's going to go already. You never know that with Rick. Not that he's out there or anything. It's that he's so intuitive that you think you know what he's thinking or what he's going to say, and you can be so far off it's crazy. And I learned that firsthand. This is probably one of the few times I really had any dealing with Rick Clunn as an angler and a tournament director. And it was kind of early in my career. Not early, it's probably midway through when I was at Bass. I think it was 13 when we were at Falcon. So I'd been there 9 years. Yeah, it was halfway through. But I think it was my first or second Elite Series tournament that I was. No idea what that is. I think our washer's about ready to blow up.
Oh, wow.
If it isn't, put a helmet on because there's a time bomb behind that door.
That's spaceship landing.
Wow. Okay. Anyway, we were at Falcon, and I think it was my second tournament, I think, running Elite by myself because Tripp was sick and Chuck was down with it in his back. So I was there by myself running the Elite. And we were at Falcon, and Rick Clunn was leading the tournament. And it was blowing. It started blowing the day before. It was pretty rough on the water the day before, but the wind got stronger and stronger overnight, and it kept blowing. And it was blowing like 40 to 50 mile an hour sustained. And we got up that next morning, and I'd been talking with Tripp and, everybody else. But ultimately, it was my call, what we were going to do. And it was Sunday, final day, and Rick was leading, Keith Combs, and I pulled them all in the trailer.
Now, when you say, before you go any further, you say you pulled them all in the trailer, who's all?
The top 12 back in the day, it was the top 12.
Okay.
So Sunday morning, pulled them all in the trailer, and I pretty much had made up my mind that it was not safe enough to go, and that it wasn't going to be the forecast. It was blowing when we got there, and that's my philosophy is you never make a call on the weather until that morning, because you never know what's, you don't go by the forecast, because you can get there and it may not be blowing at all when they said it was supposed to be, and the wind may not come in till noon when it was supposed to be there at 6 a.m. So you just don't know. So you wait till it's the last possible minute to make a call. I guess how I like to do it. Anyway, so I call them all in there because it's still blowing, and I looked at Rick and said, I know what you probably want to do. And that was probably the biggest mistake of my life, of my tournament career, saying that, because he just looked at me in a Rick Clunn and said, you don't know what I'm thinking. You don't know what I want to do, what's in my heart. And I just sat there and listened. He's like, it's not safe enough to go. He said, in my heart, I want to go. but I know it's not safe enough to go, and you got to do what you got to do. And I was going to do that anyway, but I learned a valuable lesson that I'm not going to. From that point on, I didn't tell anybody. I know what you want to do. I know what you would like to do. I know what's in your heart, whatever, because you don't. You don't know what's in a guy's heart and his mind, and you just don't. And I learned that from Rick. And so we didn't go that day. We went the next day, and Rick didn't win. And he could have. He was fishing a spot that he could have gotten to and fished, because the wind was blowing a certain direction that his fish weren't really affected.
And he was throwing a moving bait in treetops.
Yeah. So, but that also gave me the confidence in the future to make the right call and do what's best for the anglers, and no matter who it is, whether it's Rick Clunn, Kevin Van Dam, or Danny Barrett or Kyle. And that's what I did the rest of my time there. Jesse James, that's one of the statements I'm talking about. He said on the Mercer show, and you all need to go listen to this, but he was talking about the lady, Jane Woodall, that did the gorilla lady. And somebody interviewed her and asked her something like, what's the next greatest? She might have been dying or something like that. And anyway, what's the next greatest adventure for you? And her answer was dying. And because her thought on that was because either nothing is going to happen or something extraordinarily wonderful is going to happen. And that was on the Mercer and with Rick Clunn show today. Or I listened to it today, but y'all need to go listen to that podcast. It's pretty cool. A lot of stuff like that on the podcast. That statement, my personal opinion on that statement is there's three things that can actually, when you die, are a possibility. A lot of people believe nothing, you just die. I personally don't believe that. I think because I don't believe it, there's two things that can happen. It's either going to be extraordinarily wonderful, what happens to me, or extraordinarily painful, what happens to me. And that's my belief. I'm going to be on the wonderful part. Thus, this shirt here. If you all can decode it, I don't know if anybody can decode it. Danny they already know what it is.
I know.
But I mean, I don't want to get too deep, but that's part of my everything that happened at Bass, I think, is for a reason, and this is part of it. Is for me to be back here, for me to be on this show, for me to be at the church I'm at. All that is part of it. And I'm a believer, and I believe that I'm going to be experiencing a wonderful, extraordinary place after I die, and that is going to be an adventure. But to hear Rick Clunn say that and agree with that, it was pretty extraordinary to me also. Okay.
Just so.
And then, one other thing, positive thing that we didn't talk much about either, but Mark Zona retired too.
Yes, I didn't even realize that until after we were off the show over last week.
Right. So Mark Zona retired, and for those of you, if you've never met Mark Zona, what you see on camera is exactly how he is at all times in life. And that's cool. I mean, that's cool about him. But when we were doing the high school when we were doing the high school stuff at the very beginning, back in around 13, we did these. They were like, what do we call them? They were at elite events, but they were high school like seminars, and we'd do them on Saturday, and we'd get guys that didn't make the cut, come and we'd have like 6 or 7 different stations, and they'd rotate. These high school kids would rotate around, and they'd give them a little seminar. And Z, when he was there at an elite, he was one of the first to always come and help me do that and talk to the kids, and he loved it, and it didn't bother him. And even though I knew he was busy, like he's being pulled a million hundred different ways, he was always there. And I texted him and told him that thanks, and he's going to be missed. And I agree, there's no replacing him. But Rick Clun didn't. Dave Mercer asked him on the show if he'd be opposed to doing some lives. How would that be?
Wow.
I think that'd be awesome too. Not going to be as crazy, but that's like the whole Ewok thing. So, everybody's on Mercer and the Johnstons about calling Robert G an Ewok. Mercer called him an Ewok on the show, on live, all day long. But because Mercer's funny and laughing and about it, it's okay.
Sure.
But because it's in a competitive arena with the Johnstons, then it's not okay. It's the same word.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Rubbin's racing. Now it's your turn, Dan or Kyle.
I don't need a turn. We can keep randomly tiptoeing around the tulips. It's fine. I'm good.
Well, and of course, here I am forecasting, and we just got a lecture on forecasting what might happen. I think that the NPFL statement is just the first of the 3 that we're going to hear this next couple of weeks. Whether for, against, reducing, leaving it the same, all 3 will make some statement because that's part of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's no secret. At the beginning of the year, Bass did something kind of unique, I guess, and went a little bit further in depth with the guys' boats. And so, they kind of knew that was going to be a thing. I think they've done quite a bit of surveying, and they're going to make an educated decision based on business and what's best for their business to move forward, I'm sure. The NPFL come out with an official statement that they're doing away with forward-facing sonar next year. MLF decided that the BFLs weren't going to be able to use forward-facing sonar anymore. So, I mean, whether you're for it, against it, with it, think that it should only be used 6 tournaments out of 12, and we're going to flip one upside down and make you look at the screen funny. I don't know. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. But it is fishing news and it is fishing talk for sure.
Was that an official announcement about the BFL?
Yes. From what I saw, yes. It may have been the account that I was hacked on and was looking at before I got kicked off Facebook. I have no idea, but
Yeah,
that's what I saw.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but I have not seen an official statement. So,
Well, maybe somebody made it up. Maybe that's
well,
the reason why I got kicked off Facebook to begin with.
well, there's so many. It's it's kind of like John said. Everybody, social media has taken a lot of zeros and made them heroes, and I realized that
That's us.
on our podcast making that statement, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
Would people like Slick Johnson have anybody listening to him if it weren't for social media?
Jumping the gun. Yeah.
No.
Who is this cat? I've only started listening to him. Well, I don't listen to his stuff. I just catch clips of him. Now.
Reels.
Yeah. Facebook Reels and on TikTok and stuff. And I'm like, where did this cat come from? But
Alabama.
oh yeah,
Alabama.
Alabama.
I mean, nobody. I mean, we've been talking about this all year,
Yeah.
and there's no right answer to this.
Well, and
The business guys, the business owners, the MPFL business guys have to make a decision. Didn't have to make a decision. They could have let it go, but they felt like they needed to make a decision.
yeah, that's just. I mean, you got to regulate. You got to regulate your trail. You got to regulate your sport. I mean, I get it.
If like Dominic speaks to their I think by being first and announcing first, they've created a niche for themselves.
I think there's enough anglers out there, big names and not big names,
Absolutely.
that to keep it going for a while. I think longer than 2 or 3 years. There's a lot of people out there that aren't, there's no way to put a number on it. But I mean, half the people I talk to like it, half the people I don't. So that's a pretty good number to me. 50-50. It's 50-50. There's millions of anglers. There's only probably thousands or maybe, probably thousands of anglers that will ever, have a shot at that level. But half of those 1,000 are guys that either aren't great at it and now they've got somewhere to go, or they just don't like it and they've got somewhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like we need to be real about the MPFL, and it's a national professional fishing league, but there was no qualifications for that. It was, we have an angler packet, we have a set entry fee, this is the deposit, come fish with us.
Mm-hmm.
There was no invitations that I know of. We're trying to get some sponsors going, and this is what our plan is moving forward. So that is kind of a fail safe for some, bigger names, possibly, if they decide wherever they're at right now isn't going to fail suit with what they think they need to do. So that's a possibility.
I personally think it was probably a good business decision myself, but that's my opinion. And
It does. It comes down to it comes down to business, though. Like,
absolutely,
are you? And I'm not arguing if you like it, don't like it. Like I said, you can turn it upside down and do a handstand while you're watching it, trying to fish thing. I don't care, but Garmin, Lowrance, Humminbird, all the big name electronic companies, are they going to allow all these tournament organizations to say, yeah, your technology's too good? Well, that'd be tough to tell a company, yeah, we're not going to allow your stuff to be used in our events. Well, thanks for putting me out of business, or thanks for hindering my business.
First of all,
one of their avenues.
First of all, they're not paying that much money.
Well, maybe they need to up the ante if they want to keep their stuff going. Then I don't know.
Maybe. So is that a bad business decision on the NPFL's part?
I'm sorry,
Boom,
I just I can't see somebody canceling other than NPFL. I can't see Bassmaster and MLF and all three of them doing the same thing.
They're not. They're all three going to do something different.
I think so. And I'm not going to stipulate on it because there's no sense in it.
Okay. I'm not going to say because it's not my place to say, but I just know they're not. They're not all going to do the same thing. And Brent, it's a numbers game. It's a numbers of anglers game. So I'm answering Brandon's question. How does it increase business? The business for NPFL is getting anglers to fish their league. There are, like I said, thousands. There's 200 and some fishing the opens. There's a bunch fishing the invitational, the Toyota series and all that stuff. There are people fishing BFLs and that level that when you put all those numbers together, all those anglers together, you have thousands. And now if you're in one of those thousands and scoping is not your game, which there are plenty of people out there that'll throw their money in the hat because now they know they don't have to be, if scoping's not their game and they just don't want to spend the time. Rick Clun said this today on the thing too, that he's trying to get better at it, but he just hasn't invested the time that it takes to get better at it. And he probably won't. He said he probably won't. He said on his last day, on this last tournament, or the last at Champlain, I guess it was. No, it was the last day at this tournament. He said that he found some fish scoping and was actually catching them. But his last day on the elites, he told himself, I don't want to do that my last day. It's not fun for me. I want to go sling a spinnerbait and burn a spinnerbait and catch some smallmouth. And that's what he did.
They also might use some. They also, on the flip side of things, John, they may lose some guys over there at NPFL.
They're going to lose some people probably, but they're going to pick some up. It may not. You might lose Patrick Walters and pick up Matt Herron, or I'm just throwing out those names. They already fish, but you might lose somebody like that and pick up somebody else.
Yeah, I mean they're going to go to wherever they think they can make the most money at and make the best business decision for themselves.
You're only talking about 80. You're only talking about 100 guys on the elites, 80 guys, 60 guys eventually on the BPT and however many NPFL has. How many is that? 100 if they're full?
I think 100, isn't it 125, 120?
So you're talking,
Yeah.
you're talking less than 300 anglers out of all the anglers in the world that they just need. It's like this lodge. We only have 10 rooms. I don't need 50 people out of every tournament to stay here. I can't house them. I just need 10. 10. And that's the decision we made by not building another one or another two, is we only need 10 out of all the tournaments that come here every weekend. We need 10. NPFL only needs 125 guys to say, I'm in. I'm not good at scoping. I'm not a scoper, or I just don't like it. I'm in. And the other guys will say, I love scoping. I'm going to go fish bass, because bass ain't changing nothing. Or they're going to go fish MLF, where they can do it half the time.
Interesting timing on a comment over here from Chris Johnson. Chris tells us 130 is full field for NPFL. So, Chris, I hadn't talked to you about this yet, but we're hoping to get you on the show sometime this fall, or over the winter, whenever it works out. Because you're old school, and you whipped all our butts at Muskogee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did.
With a flasher in the front.
Yep.
So I immediately, when I saw Chris's name, and we were talking about a niche that NPFL has created for themselves, I'm immediately wondering, is Chris leaning that direction for next season? He probably got asked Lucy. Oh, yeah. I did not say that.
Well, he does.
I was just teasing. Just a joke.
So I was watching.
I would love to know, he says. Okay.
No, he doesn't have to ask, or no, he's not coming on.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyway, personally,
and this is important too, because we can call Chris Lucy's husband. That's right. But Chris Wisnant fishes NPFL, so it's good to have his input here. As I think it would have been a different discussion if we ever had a full field. With the upward trajectory of the league, we would have had a full field in 2025 with Bass Pro Tour cutting 30 to 35 anglers. Most of the field wanted to match the restrictions to bass.
I mean, but nobody knows the restrictions to bass.
Right.
I mean, I guess we'll just have to see. Personally, I would like to see all three leagues ban it. And this is why. I was watching the Tour Championship in golf this weekend. And it struck me. There are tools that golfers can use. Rangefinders that tell them exactly how far the pin is. Apps that tell them exactly where every break is and which way the balls go on the greens. Those tools are available. But the elite golfers, the elite governing body over the elite golfers don't allow it. They allow it in the leagues below them. They can do all that, all they want. And you can argue that even if, and why don't they allow it? They should allow it. And even if they did allow it, the golfer still has to make the shot, right? It's the same thing. It's the same analogy. Even if you have live scope, it's not going to make you catch that fish. Even if you have a rangefinder, it's not going to make you hit that ball into the hole. But the top league doesn't allow it because it's supposed to be, just because. There's really no reason why. You could argue, there's arguments out there that they should be allowing them, but the PGA does not allow it. Why? Because they're the PGA and they said so. That's the only reason. There's no logical, provable, it doesn't tear up the greens or anything like that if they allow it. There's just the reason is because we said so. Now, if all the top 3 leagues did it and allowed it below, like the BFLs and everything below, I don't understand why they're banning it in the BFL. I think that's dumb. I think you either got to do it at the top or not do it. But if they did it at the top, people will still learn to live scope because they want to win. They want to have every tool available that they possibly can to win a tournament if they need to. But I truly believe that there are some anglers out there that that's all they do and all they know how to do. And they get mad. They get mad when they get called out on it. But I believe there's anglers out there that only know how to live scope. I mean, who was it on the elites? I think I was watching the Champlain one, and one of them said, I chased this fish for 6 miles. That's not fishing. That's just not. And that's what Rick Clun was saying today, was he likes it as a tool. He'll use it when he has to, but it's taken for him and for a lot of people. It's taken the just the excitement of not knowing, the sheer joy of watching a fish blow up on a top water, stuff like that. But I think it's a lot like the golf analogy. I think it's the closest analogy I've been able to come up with. And there is no good reason why the PGA won't allow rangefinders and apps that show them where the break is on the deal. It's just because they said so. And because they're the top. You, as a PGA golfer playing in the Tour Championship, it should be all on you. And that's kind of how I feel personally about it. And if all of them would do it, you could allow your trail, your Toyota Series, your Opens, everybody to do it. They would know, the anglers fishing the Opens would then know. They would know. I think it would make them even better anglers, because they would know that they can't just rely on live scope. They're gonna have to learn how to do some other stuff, and be proficient at it, not just I can catch a fish once in a while when I stumble on them on the top water. No, they're going to have to be proficient about making adjustments when the live scope thing ain't working, instead of just finishing at the bottom when the live scope isn't working. I'm sure I pissed a bunch of people off on that one.
Oh man.
So
You know,
I got
They have, Brandon, the caddy has it and they discuss it verbally. That's totally different than a rangefinder. Totally.
I got a good tech tip.
Go ahead.
Nice segue.
I personally did not bring any of this up to get anybody's personal opinions because there's no sense.
Right.
There's no sense, in my opinion, of getting worked up about it because there ain't a daggum thing anybody can do about it other than render an opinion.
Exactly.
True.
Two things. It's September. You got time. Pull your prop off your trolling motor. Check for fishing line. Some people have the I can't think of what they're called, but some people have the speed nut where you can just grab it with your hand and spin it off. Pull your prop all the way off. Check your cotter key. Check your roll pin, cotter key, whatever you want to call it. Check for fishing line. Put it back on, tighten it down. Same way with your prop on your big motor. It can have fishing line behind it. If it does, you got fishing line behind it, eventually you're going to burn the seals out and you're going to start smelling gear oil, and then you're going to have about a $3,000 loss at a marine dealership somewhere because your insurance company does not cover fishing line eating your seals out and you draining your gear oil out and burning your gear case up.
Well, there's a good tip.
So if you smell gear oil, if it smells like poop and it tastes like poop, it's probably poop. If it smells like gear oil, it smells like poop. It doesn't smell very good. It's probably poop, and you probably need to park it and pull some fishing line out of your prop shaft. Now, on the trolling motor side, if water gets in the head of the trolling motor, it's shot too. The telltale sign of that is on the older ones, Motor Guides and the Minn Kotas, sometimes you would lose some different speeds, be random. You could have like 1, 2, 3, 4, they'd all go bad, and the only thing you'd have is 5 or 6 or whatever. But, just kind of act funny. So take a little bit of time. It doesn't take very long. When you're handling your prop on your big engine, the leading edge of your prop could be extremely sharp. Put a pair of gloves on before you pop that nut off and you grab that prop blade. If I turn the camera right now, I would. I've got a couple of little kids that run around my shop all the time. And something I do when I park my boat is I obviously trim my motor down when I've got it sitting here in my shop. I put a towel over my prop. Just in case one of my kids decides to have a spill when they're near it, or they get curious and they want to touch something shiny, I put a towel over my prop so they hopefully won't cut their hands. So be careful when you're taking your prop off and checking for fishing line. I've got scars on my hands from working on them and accidentally touching somebody's prop that just got worked at a prop shop, and it was sharp. So be careful, but you could possibly save yourself a load of money by just taking 10 minutes, pull your prop off, check fishing line, grease the prop shaft with literally anything. You can spray aerosol grease on it. You can use a little bit of some marine tacky grease and just put everything back on there, inspect your hub. But that's a whole different other topic as far as that goes. There's different hubs and props and things, but if you're not having problems, more than likely you're good. But take your prop off, check fishing line, save yourself some heartache and money this fall.
Well done.
Good tip.
An awkward silence.
I was just reading Brandon's last post, which is incorrect, but we won't get into it.
It. Damn, this entire year we've been just completely eaten up with this sonar deal. It's overshadowed literally every event on every tour. Arguing for or against.
Which is another reason to ban it.
I just want to go fishing.
I just want everybody to know John's opinion is not everybody's. John's entitled to his opinion.
I use it, and I'm trying to learn it. I'm just talking about the very top level of everything. I'm not talking about the Nichols tournament. I'm not talking about the Thursday nighter. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm not talking about the Nation. I'm not talking about the Toyota Series. I'm talking about the very top level of our sport. Yes, they range it in practice. And it's just like an angler goes out in practice and tries to find spots and marks a waypoint and then hopes the fish are there. But if they're not there, the golfer caddy can't swing around and find them and go to the spot that's going to help him put it in the hole.
Here's a valid question. This is something that I've been thinking about. And this is not changing the subject, but this is maybe changing how some people think about it a little bit. Has anybody thought about, are they banning only forward-facing sonar, or are they banning Humminbird 360?
It's not live.
It's pretty daggum close.
It's not, though. It's not. There's a difference.
Oh, okay. So you'll see those guys probably with Humminbird 360 then, at least. Because they'd be crazy not to.
Probably, but it's not the same. It's not live. You can't see the fish eat the lure on 360.
No, unless you're like, you maybe put 3 of them on your boat, and then you try and call Sasquatch and Loch Ness Monster and aliens in all at the same time.
Right.
Okay, now you are talking my language. You are totally speaking my language. I hate to argue.
I think it should go back to the olden days. I think they should have a format where they fish part of the day and then they strip their boats down and race them. And I think they should have a rotating course, and I think they should do all kinds of cool stuff. But it's 2024 and things have changed.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
I mean, seriously. I mean, we've said it 3 or 4 times here tonight that this is all we've talked about all year long. How is that good?
Yeah.
What's the Megabucks format?
Where the whole course we talked about,
okay.
where you divide it up. Yeah, that's fun. I'd love
that was something that our bass club has done a few times in the past years on Big Hill. Especially, we actually used to do it in September on Big Hill, just because of the lake and how it likes to fish in September, you can catch them out of, 15 foot of water, 20 foot of water ish, all the way up to, their fins aren't sticking out of the water, but they're so shallow they should be. So we used to do a rotating course in September every year, and it was a blast.
Yeah.
Now there was, depending on how many boats you had in said club tournament, you might have more than one guy in that whole, in that
Yeah.
area.
Big Hill's a little big for that, I think. I mean, ideally you find you get a smaller body of water that's more easily divided up, and it doesn't take long to move, from one spot to another. Our club used to do it too, but it was always on a state lake, like if you went to,
Ours was pretty cut and dry. I mean, we use the creek channel as the dividing, half down the lake.
I think I fished one or two a long time ago.
And Terry, our tournament director, would give us a map, and essentially, the creek channel would split the lake in half, and then he would do it on an 8-hour tournament, and he would break the lake down into 8 sections. So, one section per hour, and it made you fish the entire lake, which was nice for a change. And we haven't done it in quite a few years. I wish we would again.
I'd fish it.
I wish we would this weekend at Bone Creek.
I'd fish it. Not this weekend. Yeah, maybe.
We've got a club tournament this weekend out at Bone, and I wish we'd do it out there, just because I could care less where I'm at on Bone Creek. Doesn't matter. And
I fish?
Yeah. Are you in the bass club?
No.
Oh.
I don't think so. I'm in Danny's club.
Yeah, he's in my club.
I thought you may have fished one of ours already.
I did. I thought. I don't know. I don't know whether I'm in it or not. I thought I fished one of your club tournaments.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they invited me to the night tournament.
Well, there you go. We're not one of them bass clubs that discriminates. So, I mean, hell, we let Brian Failer in. We'll let anybody in, right?
Haven't heard from Brian in a while. I think we pissed him off.
I think they're working him a little too hard. I don't know.
I mean, I haven't heard from him since I said I'm not fishing the night tournament, because that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
8 to 8 or
whatever. Break.
Did he win it?
I have no idea. I don't even want to admit how many boats didn't show up.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't good. I think there was him and one other person there.
Seriously? I would think he would have won then.
Well, I'd have.
So, changing the subject to literally anything else. Literally anything.
Well,
Moody tells us 2 boats and he won. Okay, well, thanks, Mark.
do you guys read Bassmaster magazine, or do you just get it and put it under your table?
I've never read a Bassmaster magazine ever in my life. I've flipped through it when I knew there was something in it I was looking for, but I don't read anything. I mean,
Well,
let me clarify. I don't read anything. So,
I mean, obviously there's some extremely good stuff in Bassmaster magazine. There's, MLF has Bass Fishing magazine. I think it's great too. I like Bass Times. I'd kind of poke around with all of them. I'm a member of MLF. I'm a member of Bass. I get everything. And I was listening to a podcast that a gentleman in Texas has named Ken Smith Fishing. It's a YouTube channel. And he did an interview with a guy named Todd Driscoll. which is he's the fisheries biologist in Texas. And this has been a couple years back. Texas put trackers on a number of bass in Lake Fork and a number of bass in Toledo Bend. And they were wanting to study their movements spring, summer, fall for a couple years and gather some numbers. And they were when I was really watching Ken Smith, they were in the early stages of that study. And so he was extremely optimistic about what the results could possibly be and he was hopeful that maybe they wouldn't line up to everybody's opinions, I guess, or thoughts of maybe what a seasonal pattern was for a fish. But you were talking about Clun. The magazine that I got prior to the Classic with Clun's face all over it and got it signed by the man himself at the Classic. In the middle of that magazine has some of the results that Todd Driscoll, the study he was working on. And they just put the trackers on like 75 fish, I believe, in Housen on Toledo. And then they put some trackers on some fish in Birch at Lake Fork. And that study is just pretty darn neat. They got some serious numbers in there. It's like 5 pages long. I haven't gotten through all of it because it's a lot of reading. If you're interested in checking something that's extremely cool out, about the middle of that magazine has some pretty neat information on some seasonal patterns. And I believe Todd Driscoll is from Kansas originally.
No, cool.
Gene Gilliland watching.
Well,
Hey,
hello, Gene. Welcome.
Probably said some stuff I shouldn't have said.
Well, we talk about a fisheries biologist and we get one. See how easy that was?
That was amazing.
If we could all talk about lottery numbers real quick, maybe.
Yeah.
Gene, I'm just gonna give a shout out to some behind the scenes workers that may or may not get appreciated. Shout out to the fisheries biologists, because if it wasn't for you guys, our fisheries would probably really suck. So
To that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
you
need to send Gene to Wilson Lake in Kansas.
If somebody, that's what I was fixing to say. If somebody could help stock some F1s and some Kansas lakes, Big Hill, and whatever that lake you just said out west, that'd be fine.
I believe what he's sharing is the link to that study.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I will check that out, because that kind of stuff just interests the crap out of me. Kansas needs some more money. Ain't no kidding. It's something that we can't, it's hard to do on your own. Are you going to put a tracker on a fish and monitor that fish for a year and see where he swims and different things? It's kind of neat. And I think they talked about the fish mortality rate also in the show that I was watching, mortality rate after an angler holds it in his boat for a certain amount of time and releases it at a weigh-in site, yada, yada. It's just a lot of good information. So I might check it out. And maybe we can have Gene on sometime and he can actually educate us in some of that stuff.
We talked about that a month ago or so, when we were talking about the hot weather fish care. and giving some tips. And we talked about having Gene on. We need to have Gene on. Maybe we can get him to commit right now.
That would be cool.
Oh, I just a super awesome, fantastic, brilliant idea for when John and I are in the same place on Tuesday night, the first Tuesday in November.
Yeah.
And we we do this from the BNC special podcast.
Oh yeah.
Maybe we can make that happen. That would be cool.
That would be cool.
Well, he gave us a thumbs up, fellas. So,
but that also it could mean that if we raise enough money for him, he would give.
I thought he was talking about the fish.
Oh, okay.
That could be his fee.
Oh man. He said he'd be there. So there we go. Cool.
We need to find a place to have it. We can do it here, or we can do it at the host hotel, maybe.
Cool.
hey,
You're
who's got
staying here, though.
Wi-Fi?
Huh?
Whoever's got the better Wi-Fi is what I'd do.
Yeah. Oh, well, Tuesday night is the dinner, so it's going to have to be a different night.
You don't think it'd be good for me to be on the podcast in the back of the room?
Oh, that would be hilarious.
That would be.
You know, I would absolutely join you, and we'd have to have tuxedos.
Yeah, tuxedos. Like Dumb and Dumber tuxedos.
I have one.
I
have the orange one.
look better in blue.
There you go.
That takes place the weekend or the week after the Anglers in Action Championship.
That's at Table Rock. Is that right?
Yeah.
Pardon me. Oh my.
Well, yeah, it's getting ready to get busy. So I mentioned it. We got the Nichols this weekend, and then Future Bass.
Future Bass is middle October.
Oh, I don't know what we got, but we got something every weekend from now through mid-November. Oh,
Cool.
next week is not this week, but next week is that VFW Veterans Tournament during the week. I'm going to fish that, I think, and take a veteran out. They needed another boat, so I said I'd do it, even though I haven't been on the lake in a month. And then I think the Skeeter. No, that's in October too. I think it's TBF. TBF is the next weekend. Yeah, TBF Regional is the next weekend, and then we get into October, I think. So, and
John, we've got we've got ABA coming up here pretty quick on Big Hill.
Yeah, 2-dayer.
Got the ABA two-dayer coming up.
Yeah. That's in a couple weeks.
Be here before you know it.
Yep. And then you got the Kansas qualifier. I'm waiting on that one. What happens when we don't get enough boaters? Because it seems like everybody had the same idea that you and I had, Danny.
Well, probably be a waiting list situation. There was a little strategy to my posting that today. Maybe get some guys. They're all sitting on their hands and
You might have made it worse, though.
Possibly.
because I'm kind of sitting on my hands. But now I'm sitting on my hands trying to decide which, not only if I'm going to go, but which side.
Yeah. I understand. Oh, it's fun. Be tournament director, they say. It's fun, they say.
Does anybody? So, Danny, I heard you say that you declined the nomination. Does anybody know the nominations for officers?
Hasn't been published yet.
Oh, still under the radar. Okay.
Yep.
I'll learn from experience or past experiences, and I'll just keep my lips shut.
Yeah. No big deal, Kyle, honestly. It's more pomp and circumstance than it is circumstance. It's more about looks than functionality. So,
Well, I can vouch for the looks thing for being the president of something, because they've kept me the president of the Cherryville Bass Club for some unreasonable amount of time. So the only thing I can think of is because I look good, I guess. I don't know.
That's not it.
gullible, maybe.
So let's talk about what we got coming up in the following few weeks here on the show. So, we've gotten settled into, we're on every Tuesday, 7 o'clock ish, per pending electronic device issues, which hopefully we can keep those away. We've got some pretty decent guest speakers coming up. Some of them are yet to be confirmed. Some of them are. And I just want everybody to know that it's going to be a really fun fall/winter time for the Idle Zone Syndicate.
Yeah.
We're going to have some good conversations with some guys that we know the listening people out there want to hear from. We will announce who the special guest will be as we find out. And I think that's maybe the best way to leave it at that. You guys can help me if you want, but I am really, really excited to get some of the guys that we've kind of talked about on, and it's going to be a good time.
I mean, I don't mind throwing out who we're efforting and who we maybe have verbal tentatives from. Now, we may not get them for sure, but we have verbals from several people, and we can tease it a little bit, I think.
Well, let's just go with who we got coming up next.
I don't know. I don't know who we got coming up next.
Sounds like maybe they just need to stay tuned in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we started in July, and we had on a couple nation champions that are fishing the Elite Series, because this year was the 30th anniversary of Brian Kershaw winning the Classic. So we thought we'd have some nation champions on. We had Will Davis Jr. first. We had Matty Wong second, which is in order.
Mm-hmm.
Will Davis, Matty Wong.
And we're going back in time.
We are efforting. We have verbals from 2, 3, at least 3 more nation champions. And 1 classic champion. We can leave it at that, maybe.
I think it's just it's one of those deals that it takes me back to one of the first episodes that we had, that we went live with, and it's coming full circle for us that we wanted to shed light on local guys that have had success and professionals that have had success doing what some of us and most of us have been there and tried to do and strive to do, and it's happening.
And we're going to have Gene on.
And we're going to have Gene on.
And Chris Johnson.
And Chris Johnson, who is a regional champion.
Oh, excuse me. Lucy's husband. Maybe
Lucy's husband.
People will understand that a little more than if we just Chris.
And who are you?
Maybe Chris should bring her with him. That would.
Who are you? Who are you again?
Who are you again? That's a story for another time, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Oh man. Kyle just sits there quietly because he has no idea what we're talking about.
Inside joke.
Oh goodness. So we're in that little towards the end of summer, transitioning into the fall championship events. Nothing much else to talk about. Period of time. I mean, if we don't argue about sonar, then really not much else to talk about at the moment.
Exactly. That's my whole point.
I was whispered before I got on that I was supposed to try to hold it to an hour 45. So.
Oh.
Well, there you go.
You're not the only one, Chris.
Oh, you guys keep me up past my bedtime every Tuesday anyway. Because as I look out the window, it is dark. And
unfortunately.
That is bedtime.
It is dark out. Well, if Gene's not going to tell us what Bass is going to do on the forward-facing sonar thing, I thought maybe that's why he was chiming in, but
oh Lord,
I guess we'll have to just wait and see.
Gene, if you're still listening, the only thing I would request is that you give us a date.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned, he said. It's right around the corner, he said.
Give us a date when you're available, unless we're planning on November, the first Tuesday in November for him, and then
probably Friday. Probably going to happen on a Friday. So they don't all have to be around when the everything blows up. All the chat boards.
I don't have to be around when it all blows up because I get the blue screen of death when it comes to Facebook, so I'm good.
Are you still not back on?
No, I have no clue how, and I'm waiting until you close this live off to interview you on how to do it.
Oh, okay. Well, we can do that.
All right.
Do we have a guest for next week? Can we tease that? Who hasn't been on for a while?
Maybe Chris can get on next week.
Chris, you want to come on next week if you're still here?
If Chris can come on next week, I'll try to lock down the following week.
Cool. Cool.
There
All
he
right,
is.
Chris can, so we'll just plan on that.
Perfect.
Awesome.
He can bring Lucy if he wants to.
Heck yeah.
We can talk about who I am.
You're just a lodge owner from Grove, Oklahoma. I don't know what they're talking about.
That's funny.
Former lead singer of Xenolith, wasn't it?
Yep.
Cloud County Community College. Oh, yeah. Rock on, baby. Yep.
All right.
Guys,
I'm good.
as always, thanks for watching. Sorry for the technical difficulty when we started this evening. And we appreciate each and every one of you. We will see you next week.
With the old schooler. See you, Gene. Thanks for tuning in.